right, and we are live again. Once again, back for another episode. Until they kick us off to YouTube. We're going to keep doing it, I guess. And tonight
They're probably having meetings about it by now.
Probably.
We're changing everything, man. The internet's on fire.
Yeah, that's for sure. And tonight we have a very special guest, the recent winner of the Northern Regionals for WAL in the 225-pound class, left and right-handed Devon Larratt. What's up, dude?
Happy to be here.
Yeah,
Feel
man.
like I got chopped up into a million pieces on the weekend, but
Good.
I'm recovering.
Means you did something. It's good.
Wow. Yeah.
Dude, the right arm looks like it's back to old school shape, man. That was pretty impressive.
Really thrilled. I think it's coming along. Something happened sometime this winter. Just everything was starting to close in. I feel like before that I had a spot here and I had a spot way out here.
Yep.
And then sometime this winter I was able to transition between the whole range, and I was like, oh man, I feel great. So
Very good. Yeah, after your surgery, it's kind of funny because between when you had your surgery and now, it almost sounds like to me like when you're brand new. Like when you're brand new, you get to a certain point, it stops, your gains stop, and then all of a sudden, like 6 months later, you go, man, that feels like it didn't before. That spot feels good now.
It's so much fun. I get to start. It's been so much fun. I feel like I've had to relearn how to arm wrestle. Like this time, I'm being taught by myself, who's got all this experience. So I had to relearn arm wrestling. I got to reclimb the ladder. And I got this new thing to play with and learn. So I've had a lot of fun. It's been a good experience.
Yeah. That sounds a little bit schizophrenic, but I guess if it works for you, that's cool.
Yeah, well, it runs in my family.
Yeah, we're all a little nuts in the sport anyway. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Did you always have that outlook on the injury where it was kind of like, this is going to be a great new experience, or was there like a really down point at the beginning?
I always try to, view things as positive and view them in the best light I can. So that's what I try and do, but I'd be lying to you if I didn't have moments where I was like, oh, geez, did I make the right decision? It's always tough. I mean, a lot of arm wrestlers out there, especially guys who've been arm wrestling a long time, develop these chronic sort of injuries that you're like, you could probably go get surgery anytime, but, you manage it, compensate, and it's tough to cross that line where it's like, I'm going under the knife, so. Yeah, it's a hard decision.
Yeah, it's a really hard decision too, especially with like a little bit of an elbow, not straightening, because mine doesn't straighten all the way, but just a hair. It's not bad at all. But because there's a certain point in the beginning of it where it's actually helpful in a way. There's no negatives really, except for when it gets past a certain little point, it seems.
Well, I feel like the negatives too, that it's not really about the range. It's about the increase in inflammation, the lack of blood flow, and it starts to mess with your nerves. But the tendonitis, I mean, the more bone you have around there, like the more you spur out and the more you get inflammation quicker.
Right.
That's always been with me. Like, you're going to get that increase in stability probably from the extra bone, but I don't know.
So basically,
when people say, "Oh, it's an advantage to have an arm that doesn't straighten," I'm like, "Oh, there's so many disadvantages too,"
Yeah, it's definitely not an advantage. There's just that certain that there's like a small moment in there. It's kind of like when your tendons start to really tighten up when you're starting to pull, where it's like there is a little bit of a stability, and there's really not that many negatives yet, but there is that line where it's like
that sweet spot. Yeah. You're not a virgin anymore, but you're not a total whore. You're like, you got that right amount of experience where your wife material.
I was gonna say that, but
You stole your line.
Yeah.
Did you pull differently while you were practicing right-handed while you were waiting for it to heal, Devon?
Yes, I did. So I was basically like, I had my surgery, and I'm a big believer in always being on the table, like right away. And just working with what I can, trying not to get more injured, but I always want to develop something. So, at the beginning, when I first got on there, I really just tried to pull with as little elbow joint involvement as possible. And I did a lot of strap work. I found that there was a period there where, I started to develop a lot of, I didn't have faith in any kind of shoulder committal. Like, it kind of scared me to think like I'm going to put anything really through the elbow. So I developed a lot of the runaway style, like the open top roll, the King's move stuff. And I really focused on that probably for a good, since then I've definitely added it to what I like to do. But there was a good year there after the surgery where in training, like as soon as I got kind of any pressure, I'd be running away, running, like letting it all go out, and just to avoid all the elbow potential trauma.
Well, I think that's interesting because, all of us go through that kind of stuff and people go back and forth about what's the best way to rehabilitate and should you stay off the table altogether. But
I really feel like people can say, oh, but Devon, look at you, you're a train wreck. But, I feel like I'm pretty good. And I'll tell you what I think getting right back on there gives you. And I've always said that, this is a really complicated joint, and it can do so many things. And arm wrestling, you can use any of them as a great technique. So we have our spots that we like to go, right? And they'll normally genetically always probably be your strong suit. Like for me, like I feel like the way I'm built, I'm strongest when I'm like, just like right dug in. Like that's always my best spot. But that spot right there gets hurt a lot.
Yeah.
So when I'm hurt and can't go there, I go somewhere else and practice, and I hopefully develop this new choice, this new option. And then by the time that this is healthy again, well, then not only can I do this, I can do this, or post, or press, or. So I think that getting right on the table will broaden your technical abilities. You just got to be really careful that your team doesn't beat you up more. So you really, that's a piece you got to manage.
That's a good point because, having visited a lot of different crews that train, some of them really are like mini tournaments every week. There's a lot of hitting, there's a lot of, pinning contests, that sort of thing, versus, slow pulling, like you said, working collaboratively with your team so you work on your weaknesses, especially if you have an injury. It's also interesting because Jigaro Kano, who's the guy who invented judo, he used to say the same thing you said about injuries, which is, if you hurt your ankle, it gives you the opportunity to work on your throws from the other side. So I like that philosophy.
I really believe that. And I believe that if I hadn't done that, like I've been injured, at least as much as every other arm wrestler out there, but I've never stopped. And I think that that's one of the reasons I have a lot of comfortable spots in my game, because I have gotten the opportunity to hurt pretty much every single one of them along the way, right? I've had to grow.
Yeah. So, people have been writing in like 1,000 questions, and frankly, most of them are clowns. They want to know about your tactical sandals and
that's hard to believe.
Whether or not they can.
He's got nothing but clown questions. If I had a forum, I'd kick him off.
But there's one cool one here that Jamie Sheldon asked. He also said he's going to bring $5 bills for the pit next time.
Good, because Sunday is the day. Saturday I'll be too stressed out, but Sunday I'll be betting like crazy. And wait, he's a light. Is he on the same day as me?
I don't know. He'll be in the 165s. For
sure.
Yeah, do they go on Saturday too?
I don't know.
I think they do. So that's good.
Idea.
Yeah.
He wanted to know if you would elaborate on your thumb techniques in the straps.
Thumb. Well, there's two big actions of the thumb, and the one. So the thumb really sets up peeling the guy's hand back, right? So the thumb either is opening or it's closing, really, for the most part. You're getting that thumb line up. So typically, before, like my creative portion, the setting of my regrip is a lift. I want to make that thumb line rise up. So just this lifting process. all the time sets up my top roll, you know. So that ability to lift your thumb is like a creative bonus, right? Like it adds the potential for you to top roll harder. And when you're in that strap and you're tied together, you know, you can just lock that rotation, that pronation, you know, and it comes from the thumb. The thumb is really where all that expresses. And because you're tied together, you don't need to make the guy hold on to you, right? Right away, you can start twisting, and he's going to feel it right away. So you add that thumb twist with a lat drag, you know, that's really the ace, I feel like, for outside strap pulling, right? Is that lock, twist, and that drag, because no matter what, the guy's got to feel it, right? You're tied together.
Right.
Yeah, thumb is very, very big in arm wrestling and probably multiplied in the strap.
That's interesting, because we don't tend to think about it too much, or at least I don't. You know, it's something you fight with it a little bit because it's set first. I sort of forget about it and concentrate much more on finger positioning. But that's a very good point. I'm gonna try that.
There's like two peaks of arm wrestling. Like you talk about like arm wrestling height, right? Yeah. There's the finger, right? Get this thing nice and high, and this is like the tip. You know, you can make a guy come down, or you can choose to go inside, right? This tip is very important. But there's another. So this is Everest right here, and this right here, this is Kilimanjaro, right? These two peaks, right? And it's the same thing. You want to chase a guy down off your thumb, right? You want to chase him down. So, yeah, that thumb height sets up everything.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've heard you, speaking of straps, you made a comment at one point that you believe the strap is the more important tool than the table itself in arm wrestling.
Yeah.
Now, me and Josh have a little bit of a disagreement here, a friendly one, when it comes to straps. Josh is constantly looking for a newer, better way to make the strap less of an influence on the sport. I personally love the strap, pretty much in any form. I believe if you make a strap in a different way, I'll just figure out a way to use that too. But could you elaborate on that statement a little bit? I mean,
sure.
It might just be about as straightforward as it sounds. But
no. If you want, I can go on about it. First, I'll address the whole strap and its relevance, and then I'll talk about why it's so important. So the way we have the strap now, the big problem in the past with the strap was the symmetry, right? Like the whole wrap of it was just completely unfair. And, the old style, the way we used to wrap with after both guys' wrists were wrapped, you'd come underneath the bottom. And that would just mean that the guy who didn't have the buckle, that would bind the wrist to the hand. That would be the first pressure that was felt. So it was a massive difference. I think statistically, if you broke down like matches, I think it would have been a massive, hugely disproportionate, completely unfair. And I think every single arm wrestler in the world who'd been arm wrestling a few years knew it. And it got to be this silly race up to the table,
Sure.
All right. And now, okay, I still think that the strap is too thin, and I think it's causing nerve damage, and I think that that's stupid. So I'm always trying to push the 1.5-inch strap because I feel like it reduces the nerve damage. With the fairer strap setup, there still is an issue with the buckle. But the only issue that I feel that there is in the tightening process. Because when the strap gets tightened, the one guy's hand gets lifted and the other guy gets pulled down. So that's your advantage right there. But that's your only advantage, I feel. The rest of it is symmetry. And I feel that so long as after the strap has been applied, if you allow, the problem is in a ref's grip. If you put this strap on in a ref's grip, there's little that the guys can do to renegotiate afterwards. If you put the strap on fair, like the fairer wrap,
sure,
and then you allow like kind of a toggle period for guys to kind of shake it so it sits square again, I will tell you that I feel that is a completely fair strap, and I don't have a problem having the non-buckle. Sorry, I don't mind having the buckle so long as I have the ability to shake my hand like a little bit just to square it up, or get it higher.
And one thing that I never hear about the Ferris strap, I've been in it a number of times, and I agree. I think it is much better. is that it really doesn't loosen up either. Like once you really pull on it, like the old strap setup for me, it seemed like if you had two top rollers pulling really hard against each other, when you guys stop pulling, someone needed to retighten it. Like you'd almost loosen up. For some reason, the Ferris Trap seems to not have that much of an issue with that. I don't know if it is because of the way it's wrapped or what, but
I'm not sure about that, but I do know that it's symmetrical, and that's the main thing. But anyways, I do think that for television purposes and for live events, we could develop a system that tightens quicker and gets applied quicker. Like maybe just like a set of double loops that you like slide your hand through and have a tightening device on the bottom. I'm sure that there's some smart guys out there who can come up with something. But I'm actually pretty happy.
Hi.
What's up, young man? I think the Ferris Trap right now is administratively very simple because it's a very easy thing to make and it's an easy thing to carry around. It doubles as a belt. So which is handy. But I think we can make a new strap, but I don't know that the improvement will be super significant. But if we are going to, I think it should be something that focuses on speed of application and still maintains symmetry. Now, to go on to why a strap is more important than a table, you don't even need a table to arm wrestle, really, like in practice. Like in competition, okay, but like if you're going to practice arm wrestling, one of the biggest problems is this whole who's holding on to who game, right? Which is so big in arm wrestling, right? Like who has got the load, like who gets to feel the other guy's fingers. Mm-hmm. Like if you're doing a match without straps, you're either both going inside or one guy's going in and one guy's going out. There is no choice for both guys to go out. One guy's always got to be holding on a little bit, right? Which is not really what outside arm wrestling is about, right? Outside arm wrestling is about letting go and, getting up there, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, it's about using the other half of your hand, really, the top half.
Right, like outside arm wrestling, the whole premise of the whole game is based off of kind of letting go. And this causes a problem at a lot of practices when, you got a top roller and you got a second top roller. They can't properly train together. You can't, and it's bad for guys in the club who always get used to holding on to each other because they don't want to strap up, because it takes time, You start getting used to holding on to people, your technique will deteriorate. Mm-hmm. You don't want to hold on to people in arm wrestling. In life, you can't hold on to anything. Okay, let go. So, so the strap facilitates that. The strap allows everybody to let go and do any technique they want. It doesn't limit you. So
that's interesting. I like that philosophy. We train the straps all the time up here in Boston for that reason. And we use Tim Bresnan's strategy of using getting the buckle all the time, so we're used to training in a deficit. Right. So we won't be surprised in the tournaments.
It's a deficit. I really don't.
Well, not everybody is using the Ferris Trap, and I don't think everybody is doing what you said about the jogging of the hands to make sure that the position has become completely fair.
What league is not using it?
Well, for example, I think the big leagues, I don't know, is WL using it? It didn't look like they were using it exclusively.
Yeah. They have been, I think, since the very beginning.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think WAP is using it now. Yeah. I don't know if, I imagine PAL as well.
PAL is definitely using it because they're using the WAF rules.
Yep. Yeah. I think everybody's using it now.
Local tournaments are not, I guess. Maybe they're slow on the pickup.
Smart enough.
It's such a simple. The good part about the Ferris Trap is it is such a simple fix, and everybody's used to doing the whole. There's only one part of the setup that's any different, and it's not any harder. There's really not much training involved as far as referees go too. That's a good thing about it. Probably what made it so easy to get through the WAF, to be honest with you, because it was just such a simple application.
It is simple change.
Yeah.
Before we move away from the straps, Devin, we got another question from Top Roll Low. He says, if you know you're top rolling in the straps, do you try to get your cup in before posting, or do you go back every time?
I guess it depends on if I'm feeling dominant or not. The more dominant I'm feeling, the more I will involve my cup in my top roll. Like, for example, if I think I can smash you, right, I'll try and have some back pressure established. All right, I'll try and have some kind of height, some kind of load kind of going up. And then it'll be a whole lot of cup while maintaining my pronation. That's, what a dominant top roll will look like. But if I'm top rolling and it's not going to go that way, then I will give away my cup and save my rotation. So, but I'll still be putting pressure there. But you'll take it, and I'll let you take it.
That goes into another question that both I'm curious about, and this gentleman online, Corey, is asking. We've seen you do it a whole bunch of times and very successfully, and I'm talking about catching someone's hit, like Matt Mass this weekend, who has an amazing hit. Pushkar, you did it to him as well. And I'm not sure if that is even a question you can answer, because I'm sure it varies based on the technique of the person you're pulling. But how do you manage to catch hits like that? That's his question.
Well, I think that for both those questions, so Matt Mask and Pushkar, I think that both those arm wrestlers are very gifted at smashing people.
Mm-hmm.
They're both great pinners, right? Like, Pushkar is probably the greatest tournament puller that I think has ever lived, that I've seen, and Matt is super efficient at pinning people, with what appears to be very little effort. So that's a strength, but it can also be a weakness. It means that they're very focused on the pin line, and I'm a type of arm wrestler who's not. Okay, so I'm really not focused on the pin line. So, so I'm just trying to hit the right pressures on them, and in the strap, all I'm thinking about is getting a stop on them, finding their fingers, finding their weakness, extending them. And because I think that when you think that you're going to pin somebody quickly, it's almost a sign of disrespect. So, I feel like I'm maybe just not confident enough to think I can pin it, but maybe I could. Maybe I could be the next Pushkar. But
whatever. Go ahead.
anyways, I think that, it's just a different mentality.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking that I'm going to smash these guys. I know that I have to stop the match and play the extension game, right? I have to pull them out. But I don't think that either one of those two players are thinking that. I think that they put most of their energy into drilling the dude down, and they're not thinking quite as long term.
How much of that ability of yours do you attribute to power versus superior technique?
It's hard to say, what the percentages are, but I train to do that type of stopping.
Mm-hmm.
I put 90% of my effort into extending a guy, either high or low, right? So the name of my game is pulling you away from your body. It's no secret, right? Like, this is what I try and do, because I know that the closer the match gets to me, the more efficient I become and the less efficient you become. Sure. So it's always held more value to me than the whole left-right aspect, the whole pinning aspect. What I'm really after is increasing my efficiency as the match goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll ask a question on top of that. That style of arm wrestling tends to lead to sometimes little longer matches, right? And I've been pulling for 7 years now. And when I first started pulling, my endurance wasn't very good. And probably, I would say 2 years ago, I started pulling quite a bit more every week. I pull about 4 times a week now on the table. And my endurance has gotten much, much better. But really, my endurance, I believe, got better because I just didn't want to get off the table. I also wasn't really focused on pinning people. I was focused on getting position, giving some away, seeing if I could dig myself out of that hole. Before you know it, when you're in that mode of thinking, 50 seconds has gone by. So do you have a natural ability for endurance, do you think? Or did you think that maybe just a lot of years on top of each other with this certain level of, this certain way of thinking about pulling has kind of attributed more to that?
Yeah, I think that it has to do with just the constant practice more. And the reason I say that is, I was not the fastest kid in school, or had the best endurance. And I've had my VO2 tested, and it's not very good. So, but I can run good. Like, I mean, I can do things that would make you think I have good VO2.
Right.
But I don't. So I've heard the endurance thing a lot over my career. And I think that, yes, I probably do have better endurance than most of the guys that I'm pulling against. But I think a lot of it is mistaken for efficiency and just the style that I pull. It's a pulling style.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think, maybe I do have some lungs. I don't know.
I don't think that arm wrestles in general are known for having good VO2. So I think that's pretty standard. Very few of arm wrestlers run at all, do any cardiovascular stuff. It's almost like it's frowned upon to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But
like the King's move almost.
Yeah, that's a good question too. I wanted to ask was, with Matt in the final, you did kind of do like somewhat of a King's move. It wasn't like a real under the table King's move, but it was kind of the same ilk. It was the same movement.
Absolutely.
And what I noticed is that you really didn't catch a lot of flack for it, as much as maybe Crazy George or Michael Todd have over their careers, where it's been this big argument.
Sure, I will. But here's the thing about the King's move. Like, the King's move, all it is so it's a strap-based move because you're not holding on.
True.
Right? So that's the first thing that it is. The second thing is it's a non-shoulder committal top roll. So you're doing a top roll. So you're doing an outside form of arm wrestling. And it's got no internal, you're not pinning. It's not a pinning move. You're throwing your arm outside and you're just spinning that thing hard. And, there's subtle nuances, whether you're Christian Gilbert or you're Crazy George or you're Michael Todd or you're me. The thing that pisses people off about the move is that what really puts the nitrous in this move is having a bone lock, right?
Right.
Okay. And that really adds to your ability to do this move because you're swinging out and then you get that stop. But I'll tell you, I'm a big studier of the King's move. Studied it. I mean, one of my biggest coaches in arm wrestling is a guy called Troy Eaton.
Mm-hmm.
And Troy Eaton struggled with Crazy George. They're in the same category. Mm-hmm. And we used to go to events and, because it was his nemesis, I also had the luxury of watching this guy and trying to think of ways that we could beat this guy. At the very beginning of my career, I saw this move. I never really put a lot of more thought into it at that time because I was young and I was healthy and all my parts really worked. And when I pulled George, I was big enough that I didn't really feel the effects of it. I was able to kind of control him.
Sure.
But then when I pulled Michael Todd in 2011, that was shortly after he kind of got it, and he was one of the few super heavyweights that had it. Okay, so he was doing it with a whole lot more horsepower, right? And at that time, after that match, I was like, that's an amazing move. I'm like, that is one hell of an arm wrestling move. And at that point, I told everybody on the club, I'm like, I'm gonna figure this move out. I really want to be able to do this move well. Because it's a very powerful move. It's extremely effective for certain styles of arm wrestling. And so when my elbow kind of cracked, I just figured that was a time to really, really kick it into high gear. Now the thing that I've always heard people say is, oh, it's a bone lock move. It's a bone lock move. And I've always heard the King's movers say, it's actually not a bone lock move. It's not a bone lock move. The move actually kicks in right before it hits my bone. And I'll tell you, so this, for me, is straight, okay? That's straight. So I'm a damaged dude. Okay? But I'll tell you, when I King's move, it's nowhere near that.
Yeah,
Right.
I can tell.
It is nowhere near that. And I'll tell you that if somebody did actually get me to extension, it would hurt like hell, and I'd have to lay down the match. Okay? What it is, it's just a different style. Okay? And the style is hard rotation. So you're giving away every single thing. You'll give away your shoulder commitment. You'll give away your wrist, backwards, low, doesn't matter. You'll open up this angle. What's hard is your twist. You're always fighting there. All right, so you just throw out and you'll drag and you'll climb at every opportunity. So it's just a different style. It's I think that I would like to educate people on it so that, I feel like if people really start to understand the move, they maybe won't fear it as much because there's a straight up counter to it. Yeah. I'll tell you, like, I hate to tell people, how to beat me, but just always remember that the King's move, the reason why it's flawed is because you're not establishing height, right? Now, that's why it works well in the strap, is because the strap kind of binds you together instantly, and whatever you throw out, the other person has to feel. But you're still not establishing height, which is the first priority in any kind of outside arm wrestling form. So that's its flaw, right? So if you just continue to climb over a King's mover, it just gets worse and worse for them. Mm. So the move is in no way invincible. Right. It's just another great move in arm wrestling. It's another great thing that you can do, and that's the beauty of the sport, to have this diversity, right? King's move, flop, hook, press, whatever,
Well, it's interesting because, the King's move or like Jerry's flop press or steroids or injuries is, there's like a ready-made can of excuses for people to open up when they lose. And that's a nice one because people like to disrespect it. Most of them haven't tried it. They don't really understand the dynamics of it or the physics of it or whether or not.
Can you beat me in a hook? That's when I hear somebody say that, I'm like, oh, you're one of those.
Yeah. There's a lot of those guys.
Power lifter. That's the better sport for you.
Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, people have a lot of excuses. It is what it is. I mean, that's part of the game to a certain extent. And some techniques, the hook being the one that is considered by a lot of people to be pure arm wrestling. And then people, the top roll, say, well, maybe you should get a stronger hand and you won't have to worry about top rolling anymore. There's always some kind of excuse for people. And that part is funny to me because you're right. There is a diversity of techniques. Arm wrestling is not a simple sport. It's complicated. And the fact that, people like you and John Brzenk and other guys have made a point to try to master all the techniques as they arise is probably one of the reasons why you continue to be a superlative puller, whereas other people fall off because they don't want to work on the new stuff, or they don't want to even figure out what the deal is with it, or how to get good at it.
Yeah.
And I think it actually detracts, in my opinion, from the sport in general. If everybody's always in a hook match for 5 minutes, it's kind of boring after a while,
I agree.
But do you think Peter Mills asked this question a while ago, and I've been meaning to get to it. He says hi, by the way. You're doing incredibly well at the 225 weight. But do you think you're going to stick with this as long as WL is offering like the big money, or do you see yourself putting on weight again to try yourself, against the top guys in the world, right? You're left-handed. What's in your future?
All right. So 225 is a great weight for me. With eating basically everything I want and exercising like a great amount, I'll happily sit around between 232 and 237. Mm-hmm. So I'm right in that zone all the time. For me to get 225, I just have to think about it, and I'm there. Yeah. It's very easy. So I love the category. I really enjoy pulling people at this weight. There's a big difference in how hard a 225er can hit and how hard, a big Sean Latimer or some 500-pound Bishop is, falling down over top of your joints, So this is what my crystal ball sees. It sees me pulling in the 225-pound category in tournaments. If they have a tournament 225 or a tournament open, I'm picking the 225 every time. Now, I also see that we will start doing one-on-ones. The WAL has said that they're going to start doing it, so I expect that after this year's championships, at some point, we will see a move to one-on-one arm wrestling. I believe I'll be a part of that, and that means I'm going up. You know, I'm going to start chasing down big dogs one-on-one, and yeah, so that'll put me in the open. But that's a lot different pulling a one-on-one against one giant and instead of a field. There's a big difference.
Oh yeah. That's one of the, we asked that question. We've been asking of people in general. We did an article about which one is the truest proof of your skills as an arm wrestler, the super match or a tournament. And people, you know, basically seem to favor the tournament, but I think it's like the tournament maybe weeds out most of the people, get you down to the top 4 or 5, and then you can do super matches between that group to settle it once and for all. I don't know. That might be what WL is planning on doing, and I think that'd be really cool. I'd actually love to see you and John Brzenk right-handed right now. It's too bad he wasn't. I guess he's injured or something. But it would have been a very interesting match to see. A super match in that one would be awesome.
Right.
Because you guys are at the same weight now, so I mean.
Yeah. Well, I think it'll probably happen this fall. I would not be surprised if you see John and I do a one-on-one this fall.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. That'll be good. Can't wait for that one, man. All right, so we got this cat on here named Austin Slater. He's curious. He says, is pronation strength the one area untrained guys lack the furthest behind experienced pullers?
I would agree. Oh, did he say?
It's a question.
In what area?
Pronation strength.
He's asking if pronation strength is the one that beginners lack more.
Exactly.
I would agree with him. Yeah, I'd say that's the toughest one to build up.
How do you do it?
Well, table time. Table time is a big one, right? Like table time always over everything else. That's going to be my answer. Blanket. And it's not just table time. It's make sure that you're doing those outside styles or a style that involves you resisting the cup, not just, folding into it, right? Resist that cup, and that's going to build your pronation ability in arm wrestling. But, you can build it up a variety of ways. One of the things that a lot of new pullers make the mistake of, in my opinion, when they're thinking about their pronation is they do a lot of lever, twisting or hammer twists. I've seen a lot of people get hurt that way. It's a little bit far out on the hand to be twisting. All that connective tissue bears a big part of that. And also you're holding on to something and twisting it, which you're not doing when you're arm wrestling. I'm not squeezing you and turning you, right? I'm letting you try to turn me and I'm kind of resisting or using my bicep and rolling up on you. But I'm not turning you because I'm twisting you. So using a belt around your thumb is a great way. It's probably one of the best ways, or a towel that has a lot of friction that you don't really have to hold on to and kind of have that running through that portion there as you twist up. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the arm wrestling movements, even though they're strength movements, I feel like you have to kind of go way higher rep to build up your connective tissues. Like arm wrestling, we think about it as a strength sport, but you got to put in a lot of reps to build up those connections.
Yeah, it's bizarre because the way arm wrestling is really, it's kind of like the endurance talk, which was like, it's almost like endurance holding your breath. So it's not really like running endurance in a way, And I feel like for me, my rotation got really strong when I stopped doing heavy reps and I started doing statics. So my hand was neutral and I would resist the failing of my pronation, and then my recovery was just higher reps with with full range, where that's kind of how I built it with the higher reps and the lighter weights. But then my heavy workouts were just static. like I would just resist it from turning me instead of.
It's like there's two problems. The one problem is strength, right? Which is kind of easy. I feel like that's an easier problem. You just got to get the right intensity and you got to hit those spots. But then the second part of the problem, the physical problem, is your connective tissue, and they don't work the same way.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why I think you need a lot of the time and the reps as well, just for the connective tissue part of it.
So in a related area, Sahil would like to know, what off-the-table wrist strengthening exercises would you recommend?
Well, I have a few that I do all the time. My routine over the years has gotten just much more simple. Like, I remember when, if I went back 10 years in my career, I was doing hundreds of exercises, like every angle and spin and twist you could think of that ever happens on the table, I was practicing it. But now I've kind of come to a point where everything is very simplified. And I'd say there's like a hierarchy of priorities. And the most important thing I believe in arm wrestling is fast. That's it.
Right.
Me bending my wrist in hard, really hard. And the way you can do that, there's a ton of ways. But generally, the thing's got to be spinning, and it's got to be big. Whether you do it in a deadlift or a row or a pull-up, or, you have some special handle, single point, double point. Everybody's got their favorite. I prefer a single point. I prefer a cupping handle, or, just a really thick dumbbell. And I'll do either singles or I'll do a ton of reps, depending on how hard I'm hitting it on the table.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm hitting it hard on the table, I'll do a lot more reps. If I'm, going easier on the table, then I'll start to hit singles, get my strength in. So that's number one. And now, it used to be, my hierarchy has changed a little bit because of the value that I put in strap arm wrestling. Because I feel like in strap arm wrestling, pronation is almost the king. Okay, so, but outside it's not. Okay, so I probably put the second priority on the pronation of my palm, right?
Right.
So whether I use a belt or a towel, either way, I'm doing this, all the time. Same idea. People, right? Yeah. Yeah, so whether it's off the floor or wherever on a table, that's happening all the time. And the last one is me keeping my hand high, right? Just this kind of thing. And that's, again, with a towel, reps to vary. And everything after that really falls off. I'll do a little bit of supination work. I'll do a little bit of sinking. I'll do a little bit of extension work. Every once in a while I'll close my hand a few times. But and then I'll do like just a little bit of health. Very little now. I used to be much more like a cross-trained athlete, but not anymore. Now, funny story for you. So when I first kind of started to review everything in my mind, I took a year off from work, and I didn't even have a job. And I took a big gamble. I was like, I'm really going to just put everything into arm wrestling, like all my energy, all my focus. And I was like, what do I need to do right now to be better arm wrestler? Right now. And I kept asking myself that question. And I kept on thinking, it's just this. This is arm wrestling. That's all it is. It's just that simple. And I just kept on getting that same answer every time I asked myself. So I decided that for 4 months, every workout, I would just do cup. So I did a 4-month block where I was doing like 4 or 5 workouts a day, just training my cup. There was a little bit of variation in how I was doing it, and I had great gains. So I totally blew apart all my theories of, you got to be balanced, you got to spread it out. Anyways, body's a weird thing.
Yeah.
If you're not out in the elements, you can be a greenhouse plant,
Yeah, that's something as far as like the overtraining, because that's really what that bases off of, right? The overtraining theories. And there's
balance.
Imbalance, yeah. And there's a in my opinion, there seems to be a lot more arm wrestlers that are undertrained than overtrained, as far as like how much time they're willing to put in and how much work. Because once you do really get past that point, and like it's all about adaptation. Like your body will adapt to whatever trauma you put it through, and it might not do it the prettiest way, but it will do it.
That's right.
And I really think once more arm wrestlers really get into that mindset, and we start introducing it, like we were talking, I think might have been talking about before the show, introducing it to children in like gym classes, that kind of thing. That's when you're going to see the next level of arm wrestling come through.
Totally agree.
Well, other countries are ahead of us in that area. I mean, as we spoke with Vazgen last week, and he was talking about the junior nationals in Russia drawing 600 people.
Crazy.
I mean, and we are a more populous country in the United States, and if you added another 20, 30 million of Canadians, I mean, we should have a similar, group of people that are training just as hard.
Important next step that we do for our sport. I'm trying here in Canada to put together a league that's going to be just kids. So like 5 to 12-year-olds right across Canada. Here in our own club, I've witnessed it. It's crazy how good these kids get when you start them young. It's crazy. Like, you got a 22-year-old who's been pulling since they're 20 years experience. That's somebody that you do not want to meet. But you see it in Europe. The guys like Hermes or next level.
Right.
Next level. You can't experience when you go through puberty. When you go through puberty doing something, you're gonna come out the other side with gifts.
Yeah, absolutely. When you talk about the adaptation process and you include puberty into that, that's when you really do build those. Now you're a specialized human being. You're not a specialized athlete. You're a specialized human.
Yeah,
which
is
crazy.
Like you're made to do this. Everybody's gonna walk around looking like Alan Fisher.
Yeah.
Welcome to the 154-pound class, Alan Fisher. There you go.
It's interesting, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
it's. I don't know. I think there are certain things, especially in North America, that we do that subtract from the professionalism of the sport, and I think. There's been a lot of arguing going back and forth about WAL versus PAL. Devon, I'm sure you've heard some of it. The rigid rules versus the perception, at least, that WAL has rules that are less rigid. And, there's two different philosophies, and WAL seems to be thinking that making the sport as palatable as possible for, TV people that they have no clue about the sport, something that's going to be exciting right off the bat for them, versus PAL doing sort of what the UFC did, which is we're going to show our sport the way it is, and eventually people will develop the acute knowledge of it and understand what's going on. I mean, obviously you're into WL, so clearly you like them, but I mean, do you have a preference between those two philosophies?
Absolutely, of course I do. I have a very strong opinion on the rules and the future of the sport and what they mean, and So, first of all, I'll say, no matter what, I don't think that it will impact your champions that much. Okay, I think that right away, the rules aren't going to make anybody win or lose, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And if it does, it's like a 1 of or a 2 of. Okay, I don't think that the rules will greatly shift any kind of placements. Okay, now. I'll tell you, from a viewer's perspective, I've seen major problems with some sets of rules. And I'm not going to say right now that anybody's got them down perfect. Okay? Right. Well, my video's turned off. Am I good?
Yeah. I can still see you. Actually, I can see me. I can still hear you anyway.
Oh, okay. We're coming back.
There we go. Okay. I think I pressed the button. Anyway, so
we can definitely hear you.
Anyways, let me reset here. So what I think is, I'll give you a little story. So I was involved in season 2 Game of Arms.
Right.
Great time. Totally loved it. Had so much fun. Mm-hmm. But everybody on Game of Arms kind of knew that those referees had less power than anybody you've ever met. Okay, you were really. I don't know if there were too many foul outs, but it was pretty hard to do. Okay, so basically that referee really had no power to call fouls, and it was total wild west. Okay, like the grip ups, the setups, and me personally, I thought it was great. And I think, like, maybe that's just me, but I think that if you talk to most guys who are involved with that project, I think that most of them would tell you that, you know, arm wrestlers were able to sort it out themselves. So what I really hate seeing more than anything is a great match that gets stopped before it starts because somebody moved in a referee's grip. This is terrible. And the problem is the whole concept of refereeing is a very, it's a problem in our sport. Our sport is very personal, okay? It's you and it's me, okay? And we spend most of our time at practice and arm wrestling without referees. We can very quickly figure out who the stronger guy is, okay? We don't actually need this person. Now, at the highest levels, right, guys try and take everything that they can. And there has to be something there to sort that out. But the amount of power that that person has, in my opinion, should be minimized at every opportunity, okay? So, and I'm not saying that we have no rules. I'm just saying that that is the way that we need to go, because it needs to be between you and me. And this guy, this third guy, I don't want him to decide any match. I want it to be a pin. That's how I want the match to be decided. So that's the goal. So micro elbow fouls, you know, while I hate to say don't call fouls, I feel that the best referees out there are the referees that have enough knowledge that they don't need to call every foul. That's what I see as a great referee. A great referee is the one who can keep the match going without having to stop it because the rules said if the elbow comes off, we call the match. Okay, that's the rules, but we want to see pins, and it's not just about it. We have to think big. I feel like I think that running fouls are mandatory. I think that another way I think that we need to move forward is, I know that as an arm wrestler, I am most happy when you're shaking your head yes, and I'm shaking my head yes. Right? And I don't care where anything is at that point. If you've got your wrist bent in, your shoulders tucked, I don't care. I don't even care if I'm sitting on the table. If I'm happy and you're happy, referee, just say go. You know, and I know that because I've been a referee a lot as well, nothing makes me happier than when this guy's saying start the match and this guy's saying start the match. I don't care where they are. I'm starting that match.
Sure.
You know, because it takes you out of it. You know, you've given consent to start the match. Mm-hmm. Now, the elbow foul issue, you know, I think it takes a good referee to be able to, you know, call the ones that he needs to call and not call the ones that they don't need to call.
Yeah.
And that's the skill that an experienced referee is going to be able to do.
Well, we've seen you actually do that. I mean, people online are saying, and I was about to bring it up, last year at WAL with Christian Binney, when you said, don't call it, and the match kept going on. It was actually one of the best moments of that show, because it was, as you said,
Binney.
Yeah. And it was fun. It was fun that it kept going, and it was, and it's almost like, 1970s, 1980s NBA versus what we have now with a foul every 3 seconds. And back in the old days, they used to basically let them beat each other up. Right. As long as they kept playing.
Right.
So that's a very different perspective than other people we talk to. And, I've kind of been leaning towards more rigid rules, but I do understand exactly what you're saying. And I think that you probably do have a point, especially at the higher level. If you both guys feel good, feel comfortable, then why not just let it go and see what happens?
There's much more of a satisfaction that you'll get from a win where you pin the person.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
And now, I don't know. The running foul solves a lot of it. Just having the running foul, because it gives you still the option to pin. Mm-hmm. So the match doesn't stop.
I do like that.
It is a good step forward. I think it's a great step forward, and there's really no drawbacks. If you don't want to keep pulling, you don't need to either. You can let it go. Like if you feel that you were put into a bad position.
No, I actually, that's my favorite rule that they have, because we've all been in a situation where someone's losing and they lift their elbow up to get out of the match, and it drives you nuts.
Great rule. Great rule. I'm a big fan of the WAL's rules. I think that they have a lot of referees that are all kind of looking, and I think that they're really lucky to have Bart as the head ref. I think he's been able to make some really good calls and some really good no calls. I think that's the sign for me for a great referee. You know.
I like that perspective. It's give me something to think about, to say the least. Are you a supplement guy?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I love supplements. Love them.
People are asking about it, obviously. So.
Yeah, I mean, I always think food comes first, and I'm a big, natural food eater. I try and eat as healthy as I can all the time, but I love creatine monohydrate. Always have. I like branched chain amino acids, and I like glutamine. And I'll take those typically, for about 8 weeks before I compete. And if a competition goes long enough, I'll probably do a little bit from time to time. But I think they're good. They're the only, out of all three of them, creatine is the one I believe in more than any others. But I think that branched chain is good, and I think that glutamine has its place as well. If I don't have them, I don't really care, but I will take them.
I have a weird question, or maybe we're more of like a observation. Do you use chalk, Devon? I don't think I've ever seen you put chalk on your hand. Really?
I sometimes do, but the thing is I normally am slipping.
Right.
So I normally, whatever's going on is I'm trying to advance my hand position. Okay, so if I use chalk, it's just on the tips normally, just on the working parts. But I won't chalk up here.
Right.
I want that. I'd rather put Vaseline or rub my greasy forehead for a while beforehand. No, I'm all about. I like to slide. Yeah, I'm a slider.
You see people all the time. Their hands are just white. Like I'm always thinking, I'm like,
I'm one of those guys.
Yeah.
I love the chalk.
I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen Devon put chalk on his hand.
It's funny. Now that you say that, I realized it, but I didn't realize it until you brought it up.
Like the part that you're really holding on with is the cup, right? Yeah. Like you can cup, and if you want to cup, with a little bit extra. I sometimes put chalk on my fingers a little bit, but not much. No.
And that kind of leads me to another question of like when you train often on the table, how many times do you think a week average?
Well, it does vary, but typically we do 2 good practices a week. So we have 2 organized sessions where, 2 hours ish, but my house is always kind of open for always got arm wrestlers kind of coming over. So it ends up normally being like 4,
Right.
But there's been periods of my life where I've arm wrestled every day for like 2 months, So, and if I'm beat up, so we've got the finals coming up, I will probably not do quite as much table time because I'm pretty sore. So
yeah,
I need to rest.
And when I
go ahead, John.
When I train that often, the one thing that is difficult for me, and as Tim Bresnan has always told me, I have the softest hands in arm wrestling, so who knows? But the skin on the back of my hand gets bad. It hurts.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, yeah. So you get the same thing? Okay.
I tell my daughter that I actually turn into a crocodile at night, and that's the beginning. You can still see a little bit of it in the day, but when I go to bed, that's where I start my crocodile transformation.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I get the same exact thing.
Yeah.
John and I are both doing that. We both do the 2 to 3 and sometimes 4 trainings a week. And I was listening to John Brasink talk about it, saying that he never does more than once a week. He used to do 2-3 times a week when he was younger, and he feels like it's damaging. And obviously, he knows a lot more than I do. But I mean, the way that I pull it's a lot of slow pulling, it's a lot of center of the table stuff, so there's very few hitting, and I feel like it actually is making me a healthier arm wrestle. And I mean, I think doing it that way is very beneficial. I mean, I assume that's what you're doing too. I'm assuming you're not doing like pile driving each other left and right all the
Right.
time.
Right. Like, I think everything, no matter what you do, everything should be viewed as a wave, right? So you should have periods where you're doing a lot, and then you should have periods when you're not, you know? So you can always kind of manage it, kind of do too much and then do too little. So you're always kind of dancing around the right amount. But yeah, no, we don't do a lot of hitting. If I was to have a really hard practice, like, you know, and I will the odd time, like I'll go out and, you know, visit a different club or something, I'll get jumped on and I'll be sore, like, and I will need that time. But if it's a more consistent, you know, gentle, you know, nice and controlled practice, you can do it every day, you know, as long as you're not jarring, and yeah, do it every day if you want.
Yeah, and
Do it
we,
I know guys who do it multiple times a day. Like, there's teams that pull multiple times a day, every day, and we've done that here, and you can do it.
yeah, and when you talk about waves of like even doing too much and too little, you can also do waves, in my opinion, of having the focus of I'm going to go into a practice for next 2 months, and all I'm going to do for the first half hour is hook. That's all I'm going to do because that's my weakest part. And
Kings
yeah, or King's move, whatever, flop wrist.
or float your boat, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm trying not to overwhelm you with all these questions. Obviously, there's a lot of them, but this one I thought was a little interesting. Joseph Pagini asked, "Would you like to get a shot at Dmitry Trubin right now?"
Oh my God, that guy is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course I would. Of course I would. He's probably, in my opinion, it's either him or Dennis, top of the pile right now. Yeah.
So, are those your predictions for their two super matches coming up? Trubin and Dennis
Yep.
over Todd and Pushkar.
Yep, I do. Sorry, Mike. And Michael Todd, but he's got to be the underdog. Same with Pushkar. This is what I say: 6-0 for Trubin. If he's lucky, he's gonna get one. That's the most he's gonna get, maybe. As soon as it's gonna get ugly, and I think Dennis is just. I haven't seen a lot of Dennis lately, but the problem is with Dennis has this reputation of not being a good arm wrestler, and that's probably about the most false thing, one of the most false rumors out there, in my opinion. That's a great arm wrestler. He maybe sucked at the beginning.
Sure.
You watch that guy arm wrestle now, he's got it all. He's everywhere. He's flopping, he's kings moving, he's hooking, he's top rolling. There's not a move that guy doesn't do, and he's doing it while he can curl like a goddamn school bus. You know, like, that's a hard guy to beat right there.
Yeah, that's a bad man.
Yeah, I think that those are the top two guys in the world, except for me. I'm the top guy.
Oh, right, top 3 anyway, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, Devon, I'm sure you're a pretty busy guy. We'll let you go, but I want to thank you for coming on. It's been a lot of fun talking to you. Best of luck in the finals. So get yourself ready, make yourself unsore, get super strong, and win that thing, all right?
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, brother.